Today, we're going to talk about Flash Season 5. What was that? Low odor, non-toxic. No, it still smells bad. Sherlock is the exact same accent as the Reverse Flash because he does the same voice. Vibes and antidote made no sense. Cure people? Give them a choice? The goddamn criminals! And why is Reverse Flash whispering? And turn the TV up. An Iris West newspaper whole tangent didn't even go anywhere. Okay, Flash Season 5, everyone. It's okay, I've calmed down a little. I'm just a little hangry today. Flash Season 5. If you've been on the channel for a little while, you know of a video that I did about last year called Flash Season 4, Iris West Ruined It. And my entire purpose of my argument wasn't so much against Iris West or Candace Patton. I think Candace Patton's a great actress when given the right roles. Is that the writers didn't know what to do with Iris West. They wanted her on the team, they wanted her to be important, so they just made her the Team Flash lead with no real credentials or anything backing it up. They didn't use any of the skills the character actually has, like reporting and investigating in the newspaper. All of that was my complaint. And it wasn't just about Iris West. I just knew you'd all click a video titled Iris West Ruined It. It was more about the writing within the Team Flash situation in which the writers just didn't seem to know what they wanted to do. And so because of that, that was what I felt ruined Season 4. On top of that, the Thinker definitely was a horrible villain that just turned into Sylar from Heroes because he would just jump from body to body with different powers, and then we had a Matrix Reloaded style fight. I was waiting for Agent Smith to show up and just multiply. That brings us to Season 5, which I will admit, when we did episodes 1 through 13, I was kind of on board. They fixed a lot of my big issues. The writing made sense. Characters like Iris got a newspaper and she worked for it. We had characters like Ralph Digby becoming more of an actual character and less of a full-time joke. We had characters like Cisco exploring the concepts of like, what if I make a cure? What will that do? And characters like Caitlin exploring her entire Killer Frost background. And one of my favorite things, in my biggest complaint, in which a plot should not stretch over 23 episodes, making no goddamn sense, instead, they decided to take a lot of the plot points, the core storylines, and have an underlying theme of battling against Cicada with the dagger, but have like a more forefront plot that would be resolved within 5 or 6 episodes. Every week, me, Dan, and Gary would do a show called CTV on our patreon.com/Comicstorian page, where we do many podcasts. And every week, the week before, we'd be like, man, I'm really getting tired of this plot point. The next week, they'd resolve it. I felt episodes 1 through 13 were doing amazing, and my largest complaint with episodes 1 through 13 was Nora West Allen. She came in and it made really no sense. It was cool because we had Nora West Allen there, we had the daughter, but the characters all acted like she'd been there forever. They did a quick DNA test, they proved it was her, and no one questioned how this girl had been raised. Maybe she's a villain, maybe she's working for someone else, maybe she manipulated things. They just instantly said, here is Nora West Allen. And that presents my first core problem with Season 5 of The Flash. Dan! There he is. Nora West Allen is just Kid Flash. So one of my biggest problems with the show is the introduction of Kid Flash. Kid Flash should have been the character that they basically trained and Barry spent the time with. But Kid Flash never got that properly. He never got a true, I'm going to help out Barry, he's going to train me arc. And it was almost like at Season 5, the writers knew this. So they wanted to do a time travel plot. They wanted to have the kid come from the future. But anybody who follows comics knows that the actual future kids of Barry West and Iris is Dawn and Dawn. Dawn and Dawn. Dawn and Dawn. It's D-O-N, Dawn and Dawn. And for the record, if you name your twins Dawn and Dawn, then you just don't like them. That's literally it. Because who is not gonna mess that up? Anyway, Barry and Iris hate their children. Moving on. Nora West shows up and everyone just assumes she's a good character with no problems at all. And that was the problem with the writing. So everything else was going great with the opening season, but the biggest issue I had was the actress. Sarah Jessica Parker is the character from Sex and the City. Sarah Jessica Kennedy is the character from Flash. It's the thing in my brain, it works, just go with it, whatever. She's like 21, 22, but they made her act like she's 15, 16. Barry and Iris, who a random guesstimate are probably like 28 to 30 something at this point, just acted like she was their child and they've had her all along. They would ground her and not let her go out and do things. And I just found that whole dynamic a bit weird. But for the sake of the show, I was willing to accept it because it was a narrative that we were trying to follow. They had this children, they had an instant family, and even though that movie was not good, the concept's good. Instant family, bam, okay, cool. So we have an instant family, and while we were doing that, we were focusing on other plots like The Cure, okay? Like Caitlin, Killer Frost, and Icicle. We had Sherlock and his many, many wives. We had the Nora plot. We had Cicada. We had, apparently, Vibe's love life. Not really sure why that was a thing. Didn't we have like Cicada's daughter as a thing? Like they were trying to turn that into a thing. And then we had Reverse Flash. And then we had the cop from the future. It may have been John Connor, but I don't know. Godspeed. Bad. We'll just do that right there. The power inhibitor chip. Okay, that's that one. Kid Flash leaves. The nurse. Joe got injured. Grodd versus King Shark. Roar. My point, I think, is illustrated on the whiteboard today. What happened? So 1 through 13 was great. We had plots that were opening and closing. We had filler episodes like King Grodd versus King Shark. The writing was on point for the most part. I mean, as on point as a CW show is going to get. You can't go into a CW show and going, where's the Shakespearean writing habits of the writers from Juilliard? No, you go in there going, where did they pull the fanfic people from Reddit for? But they at least know how to string together conversations that made sense. And then we had interesting facts going on, like, we'll put Sherlock investigating. Like the Nora Allen thing. And then we had Iris West being like, no, that is my daughter. I trust her. Yo, boy! I don't know. She was doing something along those lines. But she was very, very mean to Sherlock. And Sherlock was like, ooh, how can I do a French accent and not offend? We can't. So anyway, let's not do that. The point I'm making is Iris West was very much against Sherlock investigating the daughter. And the narrative they had built up that they would automatically trust Nora and that she had given them no reason to really distrust them made sense. So of course Sherlock stayed away. Up to episode 13, I was 100% on board. They had cleaned up most of my complaints. Writing worked, characters weren't just seemingly left hanging. If they weren't doing anything, they just didn't seem to work into the plot. They would focus on the characters. I mean, it's still kind of a problem that the Flash took a backseat to his own show, but at least we had another speedster they were focusing on, Nora. I mean, what was it, XS was her name? Oh, and for the record, let's just throw this one out there real quick. Did they like run out of their budget using that Grodd King Shark fight? Because they spent a lot of time at Jitters. Like seriously, they used Jitters in the Star Labs set for like 80% of the show this season. Felt like they just used all their stuff for the Grodd King Shark fight and they hyped it up. And it wasn't even that good, guys. Can we not spend the budget on that? Anyway, that's another rant for another day. The problem I had with the season, I need my Gary. Carrie. Yay. I'm making a hole. You know what, whiteboard, Dan? There we go, okay. So 14 to 29, is that 30, 20? Anyway, the second half of the season, Dan, here, wipe this off. Whiteboard, Dan, wipe that off. The point, yeah, you do that real quick. So 14 to 20, whatever they went to, okay? This is the problem. What happened? I even looked it up. The writers didn't even ultimately change. They put in some new people, whatever, but characters stopped making sense. Okay, the best example I have is Iris, which had made a newspaper, was using it to investigate things, was finally doing what her character does, and I was loving every minute of it, seemingly forgot she had that newspaper. Also, then when Sherlock figured out that Nora was working for Reverse Flash, was upset that he didn't tell her. Like, did you forget 10 episodes ago? You literally told him to stop and don't tell you anything. Okay? What about Barry? Finding out about Nora, giving villains a second chance, and then running her off to the future, and then doing the weird I can tell if you go into the Speed Force thing, which, for the record, I think they established was a lie, but at the same time wasn't, and if you could tell that she was in the Speed Force, then what about that whole episode where she Groundhog Day everything? Like, things just didn't line up anymore. And I don't know why, and what were you doing, and what happened to Cicada? So first off, let's rant about Cicada for a moment. This villain was seemingly pretty cool. He had seemingly super strength, the ability to fly, and a dagger that would turn off powers. Cool concept. They were trying to stop him, but due to the fact that they couldn't use their powers, that was creating a bit of a problem. They then created a cure, had multiple chances to use it on him, and they used the goddamn argument, well, we should let him choose. That is not what you do with someone who kills people. Okay? Seriously, I get the argument. Well, we need to give them the option to get rid of their powers. What is the second option? You arrest Cicada and he goes on death row? Like, that's what he murders people. Murders them. He doesn't bring them off to the happy farm and you can find them riding My Little Pony into a rainbow with the Lucky Charms guy giving you a potluck at the end. Is that what the Lucky Charms guy does? I don't really understand what he does. Like, Cicada's not a good guy that they're giving the option to. It made sense with King Shark, and I liked that narrative. But then you go to the murderer, and you're like, well, Cicada, I know you've been murdering people, but we have a cure. This cure is a magic marker, and if you just let me write a penis on your forehead, and if you just let me write a smiley face on your forehead, it will cure all of your powers. Cicada, of course, as the villain's gonna go, no, I'm going to do that. Also, can we just, this is a rant you hadn't caught on. What is with the villains and having villain voices permanently? This is Cicada. Like, I feel like he was like, hey Grace, Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow. Like, why is this his permanent voice? It made sense in The Mask. Then he'd be like, so anyway, I was thinking. Like, dude, you're a villain. And then Reverse Flash, he talked like this. Dan's probably gotta boost the audio so you can hear what I'm doing. It made no sense. You'd be like, Barry, I gotta kill your daughter. And then I could just see Barry being like, what? Hello? Like Shazam, you're a mile away, but Reverse Flash is like, here. I know I'm out of focus, Gary, it's fine. Barry. Like, why? It didn't make any sense. And then Cicada, they finally convince him to shift and they're like, oh no, there's a girl Cicada. Okay, let's just throw this out there real quick. Can no one tell the female form from the male form anymore? Because the moment there was a female Cicada in that dream sequence, before we even had her introduced, I looked at Dan and Gary and I'm like, wasn't that a woman? Like, I get the idea that you would mix up the two cicadas, but they gave her a forfeited coat. I don't know any men with an hourglass. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you would have thought at some point someone would have been like, that was a very slender cicada. The other guy's really bulky. I don't know. So this villain just shows up and then they chase the guy and the girl around, trying to find ways to stop him, but he conveniently gets away the entire season? That's how we're stretching out the cicada plot now? What? And then like the whole convince him to be good, but oh no, there's a second cicada. Like, why? What? Did you just, hey, you know what, we should do a cool plot with 13 episodes of just cicada, and that's all it's gonna be. And then like in the writer's room, they were like, that's a great idea. We'll focus on one villain for 13 episodes and Nora can stop him. And then for the second half of the season, we'll deal with the Reverse Flash that she's been talking to in the future. And then someone else in the writer's room was like, right, but do you want to do Reverse Flash for like 13 episodes? And they're like, no. Why would we want to take the show-stealing actor and put him into his supervillain role that everyone wants to see? Let's do another cicada. Did no one in the writer's room go like, oh man, that's not a good idea. Let's not do that. Like, it wouldn't even been cool if they were like Cicada, then Cicada 2, and they were like, that's a 3-episode thing. No, we didn't get Reverse Flash to the very freaking ending, and you hinted at him the whole season. Why? And then the ending of the whole thing, I called it episode 1. I'm like, we're gonna end this season and it's gonna be super sad because Nora has to leave. But it wasn't even really that sad because they're like, we could save you with the negative speed force. By the way, who in the writer's room was like negative speed force? Let's use that. Because even in the comics, that lasted like 4 issues and was gone. because that was just not good. So why is the idea that she can use the negative speed force to come? It was seemingly so unnecessary to throw the negative speed force into her character. Its entire purpose seemed to be, she dissolved it in one episode! Like it didn't come back! There was a brief moment where she's like, I'm gonna kill you. And then like they're like, don't do it. She's like, oh, okay. Like, that's how you overcome the negative speed force? And then like, we can save you with the negative speed force. No, I don't want to become the villain of next season because a speedster villain is something that the only thing that the Flash can really fight. For the record, guys, in the comic books, the Flash just fights speedsters all the time. It works better when the story arc lasts 12 to 24 issues and it's over the span of 2 years. Not when it works with 23 episodes and like, I don't know how many, it's like, oh God, 6 months? It doesn't, and let's talk about the timeline problems, okay? The moment the dagger is removed, that instantly corrects the timeline. Now, woohoo, hello, you fixed the timeline. Okay, timeline. Dan's like, thank God you're using the goddamn board, I came back. Okay, timeline. So here's where we're gonna get rid of the dagger, right? And here's where Reverse Flash got caught and we put the dagger in him and here's where he's gonna die. So the plot was that they were gonna go back in time to here and they were going to get rid of the dagger, boom, boom, add cool effects, Dan, otherwise I'd look like a loser. Anyway, and then this timeline wouldn't exist. Except using endgame logic, because that's how you do time travel, you use all the different shows in one. They wouldn't have existed to send Nora back to stop the dagger to prevent the Reverse Flash from being caught. But okay, let's ignore time travel standard rules and the way it works. Let's do Back to the Future timeline where you correct it. It corrects your timeline. This doesn't make sense. Okay, cool, that's fine, we'll do that. He wouldn't have been caught. So like, if the dagger's what they used to catch him, how did he get here still? How did this even happen? Okay? And let's throw another thing out there. So in the comics, Don and Dawn are the actual children of Barry and Iris West. They are the children from the future. And for the record, Barry and Iris hate their children because why would you name them Don and Dawn? So similar names, that's just being mean. Like seriously, especially when they're twins, they're gonna be in the same grade. Can you imagine like 3rd grade, Dawn? Oh yeah, I'm coming. No, Dawn. No. Anyway, we got the Easter egg that they said, oh, you're not Dawn, right? Meaning the original timeline had Dawn and Dawn. Okay. Then Nora disappears at the end of the season, right? Because the timeline's corrected. So what's different that made Nora even happen? Where did that come from? So the first kid that Flash and Iris are going to have was twins, Dawn and Dawn, which is established when the Reverse Flash sees them and says, are you Dawn? Meaning these two exist, okay? I'm not a super fertility expert, but what in the timeline turned twins into Nora? How does that even function? Okay? I don't even understand how that would happen. Because up until Reverse Flash being caught, you would assume he's gonna remain the same. Meaning, Zakeda is free. Woo, woo, I'm Zakeda. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm a Darth Vader wannabe. Anyway, that's Zakeda. So you're assuming everything up to the Reverse Flash being caught would be the same, meaning these two would be born, okay? And if the dagger's gone, he's not even caught. So he's not here and able to kill everyone. And their own rules don't even make sense because they capture the dagger, right? And Zakeda immediately vanishes because the timeline is different. Right? Other than narrative plot make a cool final fight sequence, why wasn't this instantly corrected? The only one that I will give the pass that they were not directly affected is Nora because she had the negative Speed Force, and they made a whole plot of that's why she's sticking around to talk to them. So I guess that's the whole reason to use the negative goddamn Speed Force, because it allows her to stay outside of the timeline. Oh no, she'll become evil. Ah. Anyway, apparently I'm a Teletubby now. I don't know where that came from. 1 through 13 was great. They were on a great track. The writing had improved. They had made the storylines make more sense. Oh! Don't even get me started on Icicle. Let's just agree that the Killer Frost dad, frozen people, time. What? It made no sense. Well, I mean, it did, but it wasn't good. Who was sitting there going, man, we really should deep dive into the Killer Frost family? I'm sure people are sitting around going, Killer Frost has alternate personality in here. What if her whole family was like that? That could be a really chilly story. Oh wait, hold on. Dan, add CSI music. Anyway. I feel like this whole video has just been rambling and ranting, but honestly, I don't know what's going on with Flash. How do we go from season 1, great, 2, great, 3, oh, what'd you guys do? 4, what is even happening anymore? And then 5, we get half of a good season. Like, I don't understand it, and the characters didn't make any sense, and like Nora's arguing with Sherlock, even though she told Sherlock to tell her what is going on, and Nora's acting like a 16-year-old kid, even though she's obviously like 20-something, and Barry's just taking a totally back step to his entire show. I didn't feel like he didn't even really do anything until he decided to run her to the future. He didn't do anything. Vibe was like, I'm making a cure, and they're all like, let's not give it to killers. Let's give them a choice, because we want the killers to have superpowers. And then Caitlin's like, I'm Killer Frost. No, I'm Caitlin. I'm Killer Frost. No, I'm Caitlin. My dad is Icicle. Like, what was that? What? And then Sherlock's just a continual joke up until the end of the season. And his accent was not that good, and he kept doing it when he was Reverse Flash. Every week we sit down and almost take a tally of how many times Reverse Flash, in his whisper voice, was sounding like Sherlock, okay? Digby at least had some kind of like redemption. He wasn't like a total womanizer anymore. At least he was fun and a good character to have around for the most part. And he figured it all out in the end. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Flash. The Flash is one of my favorite superheroes, okay? Iris West is one of my favorite female characters in comic books that like isn't a superhero, because she's not just like classic Lois Lane where she sits by and does nothing. These characters should be treated so much better than they are, and that's why 1 through 13 in the season was so exciting for me, because characters were being treated properly. We were getting a primary focus on like 4 to 5 of them. There wasn't 1,000 plot threads running at one exact time. And then it's like we went on mid-season break and they're just like, oh, just throw it all against the wall again. We're CW. That's how I feel. That's how I feel it happened. Dan's getting tired now, most likely. I probably ranted more than usual in this one. I apologize if you just didn't want my rant about this, but if you do want more rants, let me know in the comments down below what you think about me doing these rants and my opinions. And I'm gonna go watch Arrow's finale in a minute. We'll see what happens. You can find me on Twitter at Comicstorian, or at my personal one, the Benny Potter on Twitter, and Instagram we are at Comicstorian, and my personal one is Benny_Adventures. You can check me out on both of those. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed just my opinions on this. If you let me know in the comments down below, if you agree, if you disagree, if you loved this season. I had so much hope, so much hope. It was half an amazing season. And God, you wrote off Kid Flash. I mean, the fact, just for the record, before we close out entirely, the fact that Vibe, Caitlin, the actor who plays Harrison Wells, I think Joe's leaving, like half the cast is leaving, should be a sign. There is some problems going on there. And maybe CW won't watch this, they won't see my opinions of the whole thing. Let's not bring in a whole bunch of new people. Let's just have Barry, Iris, and like 2 supporting cast and focus on them. Let's just do that. Okay? Okay, good. Good meeting. Break? Dan, you get to stay there all night.